when I switched over my pricing to something that was sustainable instead of, just the shoot and burn hobby that I had, it was like night and day. So the clients that I was attracting trusted me to do my job. They were not backseat driving. They were not giving me a million Pinterest pictures. Sometimes I still get that, but you know what I mean? And I wasn't getting people that were like, I want this picture exactly. So I was always explaining to people that I don't want to copy other people's art. We can work around it. We can give you that vibe, but it's not something that I feel comfortable doing, copying somebody else's work.
Hey, creative. Are you ready to discuss profits, the money, the ways to make it happen? The Profitable Creative Podcast is for you, the creative, how you define it. Videographers, photographers, entrepreneurs, marketing agencies, you get it. CEO of Core Group and author Christian Brim interviews industry experts, creative entrepreneurs, and professionals alike who strive to be creative and make money at the same time. Sound like you? Tune in now. It's time for profit.
Welcome to another episode of The Profitable Creative, the only place on the internet where you will learn how to turn your passion into profit. A shout out to our listener in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Yes, one listener in Pawtucket. Never been to there. I've been to Rhode Island, but I've never been to Pawtucket. Anyway, I'm your host, Christian Brim, and joining me today is Elizabeth Snyder, if I could use my words. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for having me, Christian. This is an honor. Thank you so much.
Well, I haven't got that today. So tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. So I am one of those lucky people that knew exactly what she wanted to do from the age of 8 years old.
Okay.
So yeah, it goes way back. My aunt was close to my age, and when she was 16 and I was 8, her grandfather retired from his photojournalistic job and gave her everything that she needed to start a modest darkroom and studio in her attic. And I helped her from go. When she was running her own headshot business, I was there to help her work in the darkroom and help assist and all of the things. And when I saw an image appear from nothing after developing, that was what hooked me, because it was like actual magic. It was very cool. So I exhausted every photography class I could take. I read every single issue of American Photographic magazine back in the day, and then life happened, and I did not start right away on my chosen path. It took me until I was 31 to actually start a business. I was working for a bank at the time, and I didn't see a way to actually make money.
Not in a bank, no.
Yeah, no. Well, I meant from photography. I was kind of stuck in that I have to have a 9 to 5, right? Like I was a single mom and all the rest. But a friend of mine at the bank asked me, what would you do if time, money, age, circumstance didn't matter? What is it that you would be doing? And my knee-jerk reaction was photography, 100%.
Right.
And I actually entered a contest that he had sent me. Won. I won a camera. I won a laptop. I won a Photoshop for a year, because back then it was a little different. And within a year, I was able to quit the bank and go full time in my business and my studio. And I have never looked back, and I am unemployable at this point.
Yes, as any good entrepreneur is.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what was the tipping point where during that year where you said, okay, I can do this full time. I can quit. What was that trigger?
So that was, I got passed over for a promotion that I was after and promised at that bank. And I had it. that that was kind of like, I was there for a little over 5 years, and that was like, I couldn't do it anymore. And I talked to my husband, and we decided to do the scary plunge and just see what happened. And yeah, with it, like I said, within a year, I was making more money doing photography than I was at the bank because, well, minimum wage and whatnot.
Banks don't
So
pay.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a secret I don't share with a lot of people.
Mm.
Was that I used to be a banker, and
Ah,
I don't share that with a lot of people.
yeah.
So we share a disdain. So what would you say? A lot of creative entrepreneurs in creative industries struggle with this idea of getting to do what you want versus what makes you money. Has that come up for you?
It absolutely has. That is something very near and dear to me. So, on the journey of being a single mom, there was a time where I applied for food stamps, and my case was dropped. So the woman that was heading it went on medical leave and never gave it to somebody else. So I spent about 6 weeks with. I mean, I had no income. My ex had emptied our bank account, and I had no car because he totaled the car and he was working full time. He needed the car.
Right.
So I found myself one February trying to we live in Buffalo, so we get a ton of snow here.
The story gets better.
Oh yeah, it's so bad. So the area that we lived in, like nobody shoveled the sidewalks. It was just a mess. So I couldn't take the kids in the stroller. Like I had to pull a sled behind me about a mile to the food bank. That was the last straw. I'm like, things have to change. I can't keep doing this. This is awful. And eventually my case got picked back up. We were okay. And then I ended up in, that dreary, like I was working 3 jobs kind of deal.
Well, no, okay. So let me ask a question. Was this after the bank?
This was during the bank.
During the bank.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was working there. I was doing hair out of my house, and I was doing a little photography on the side. It was a lot, and I had no time for my personal creativity, which I was suffering from. Like I was so depressed. It was awful. Like I was exhausted. The weekends that my ex had the kids, I would just sleep the entire weekend. It was horrible. So after doing some research, I found that when women especially are offered a opportunity to get into a class of something of their interest, so like if it's free, which yeah, and you're getting to learn a skill, so painting, writing, food, like any kind of like art form, it just drives us, and we want to share it with everybody because we're so like excited about the new thing that we're doing. So it is not in the works yet, but I am in the planning stages of starting a nonprofit in an inner city to offer that to the people in the community that I came from. And I am, so I want to set up like experts coming in to teach the classes for free for the women in the neighborhood, and other people can come in to pay. And I want a gallery where they can sell their stuff if they want to, laundry service, daycare while they're doing their classes, and a food bank. So I am trying to get that going.
I think that story illustrates a couple of different things, but the thing that stuck out to me is that you're an entrepreneur first that has photography skills, because setting up a nonprofit, what you're describing has nothing to do with photography, although you might teach photography there to them, but that's really kind of secondary. And I think that's important, because when we approach when we approach business opportunities with just the skills we have, we limit ourselves, right? As opposed to, yes, I have certain skills, but that's not who I am. I'm an entrepreneur first.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. No, shooting is probably 10% of my job. Because everything else is here. It's editing, it's marketing, there's so much that, there's so much that goes into it. And it was a shock when I discovered that. I was like, oh, I'm not actually doing the thing most of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So what have you learned that if you were going to go back to yourself and say, hey, do this, don't do that, what comes to mind?
So many things. So I started as a shoot and burn photographer. So I was just like desperate for experience. I really wanted to get out there. I wanted to put my name out there. And to do that, I felt like I needed to offer everybody everything for super cheap. So at the time, I think it was doing mini sessions for like $50 and they get 10 images. And I would not do that ever again.
Well, okay, pause, because I want to hear the rest of the list.
Yeah.
But let's dive into this one. Why?
Okay.
Why would you not do that?
So when I switched over my pricing to something that was sustainable instead of, just the shoot and burn hobby that I had, it was like night and day. So the clients that I was attracting trusted me to do my job. They were not backseat driving. They were not giving me a million Pinterest pictures. Sometimes I still get that, but you know what I mean? And I wasn't getting people that were like, I want this picture exactly. So I was always explaining to people that I don't want to copy other people's art. We can work around it. We can give you that vibe, but it's not something that I feel comfortable doing, copying somebody else's work. And the fact that I was being trusted by brides and grooms, by newborn parents, by all of the different things that I was juggling, all the different genres of photography that I was juggling. And I got no kickback. They paid the invoice. They trusted me. They loved their photos. And there was no like fight to it.
Right.
And defense of it. So
Right.
it worked out beautifully after like about 3 months when I had to shift. And that was when the marketing finally like kicked in.
I want to clarify that you said shift, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Yes.
I'm sorry. That's my 14-year-old boy. Haven't matured past that.
Today's episode of The Profitable Creative is brought to you by Core Group. Are you tired of doing it all yourself? Do you feel like you have no plan? Let Core Group guide you to build the business of your dreams. Core Group, your go-to accountant for creatives.
I find that an enlightening story, because I think most people, when they start out, have that mindset of, I need to do anything and everything, and I'm going to be cheap because I need the experience. And I want to push back that is actually a untrue statement, because you don't need experience. Like, if you know how to do what you're doing, you don't need any more experience. And it's like my wife, okay? I feel like Rodney Dangerfield here. Probably don't even know who Rodney Dangerfield is.
Oh, no, anyway. No respect. I got no respect.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, he always made jokes about his wife.
Yes.
Anyway, my wife is looking at having surgery, and she was looking at this physician. She's like, well, he just completed his residency 2 years ago. And I was looking at his resume, and I'm like, well, he's got a fellowship. And she's like, well, I don't want to him practicing on me. And I'm like, no, that's what the fellowship is. They watch him do the procedures and then they sign off and say, yeah, he knows what he's doing. Right. And to even further point, I don't know. I may have, as a professional, 5%, probably less than that, of the time get the question of, well, do you have any experience with this kind of thing? Because people don't ask that question. Like, they just assume that if you say you can do it, you can do it, right? Yeah. So you don't need experience, and you don't need to be cheap, because being cheap does two very bad things. One, it makes you very busy and not necessarily making money. But two, it makes you seem cheap. Talking about the experience is like when you go in at the low cost, you're already telling them, "Hey, I don't have any experience. That's why I'm not charging anything," and you devalue what you do.
100%. Yep. And there was even a time where I went in and did a Groupon way back when, and that was another, because they, if you set up a mini session for let's say $75, you're only making 35 or something after they take their hit, and then everybody just wants a deal. Everybody wants the free thing.
Right.
And it was not a great fit for me and what I wanted to do. I wanted to make women feel like they were worthy of having their portrait taken. And there's so many of us at my age, there's so many of us that, hide from the camera. We hide behind our kids. We hide in the back of the group picture. We're so self-conscious. We don't want everybody to see all of the things that are going on in our, face and body. And, I get all the time, I'm so unphotogenic. And that's absolutely not true. You just haven't found the right photographer,
Fair enough.
So, yeah. And
all right. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that once I shifted into working with women almost exclusively, and getting them to be coming in almost angry sometimes because their bosses are telling them that they need to have a headshot and they absolutely do not want one. And I can get them from that to they cannot wait to do it again, just by opening up a conversation about creativity. And I'm constantly just, I love hearing people's stories about how they got to where they are. Like, what made you want to be a person who forecloses on mortgages, right? Nobody wants that job. How did you get here? And by going through that and by saying, what is it that you wanted to do? Like, what was your pipe dream? And a lot of times it's like, oh, I thought I was going to be an astronaut or a rock star or whatever. So if that's the answer, you're probably still looking up at the stars. You're probably still belting songs out in the car where nobody else can hear you. And there are ways to incorporate that creativity into your life. It does not have to be your purpose. It does not have to be something that makes you money. It's just something that you enjoy doing. And we get away from that so much in the hustle and bustle of just family life and working full time and keeping up with your friends. And we have so much on our plates that we forget to do things for us.
Yes. Women especially. Mothers particularly.
Yes.
I can say that, having been married 31 years and have 3 adult children, 2 of them girls.
Congratulations.
So
That's amazing.
So number one was your pricing and the doing everything for everyone. What would be your second bit of advice back to yourself?
Oh, don't overfill your schedule. That is something that I learned the hard way, because I am just like one of those people that are like, oh, they need it on this day. They absolutely have to have it on this day. I want them to say yes to the sale. So I'm going to do it on this day, even though I have 4 other things going on. You set up a schedule of when you're for me, when you're shooting, when you're editing, when you're, doing paperwork and other marketing things. And people they're okay with it. Go figure, you shoot on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and they are like, okay, great. Let's pick this Wednesday. And I was so afraid that people were just going to be like, no, it absolutely has to be right this second. And that is absolutely not the case at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have used the phrase in our company many times. There are no accounting emergencies. If the only one I can define is if the IRS agent is at your door and they have a gun. And if they do, they're that's out of our purview. That's criminal investigation. So you need to call a lawyer. So there are no accounting emergencies. What did you learn about money growing up?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. We didn't have any. I got the money doesn't grow on trees. Let's go to I think we got new clothes maybe once every couple of years. We were usually thrifting. My dad.
Now that's a thing. Now everybody wants to thrift. Oh my God.
My daughter, that's all she wants to do is go to Goodwill. Yeah. Which is great. I'm all for it. Absolutely. But at the time, you're a kid in the 90s who doesn't have the, cross color shirts or the the Boss sweatshirts or whatever it was that we were wearing, which was, it was what it was. So we did not, my father was a factory worker who got laid off a lot because of strikes and everything else. We had government cheese and dehydrated milk, and it was not great. My mom did what she could. She was mostly working part-time because of us. So, we were pretty limited. And growing up in, the mindset of we're not going to be okay unless we win the lottery is kind of tough. I was the oldest of three, and I remember a lot more than my brothers do. And I can remember times where, we were worried we'd have to sell the house, we'd have to move, and we just couldn't afford anything. And, we were in a situation too, where of course my grandparents would have helped, but it's help with a thing, with a cause. Yeah. So I don't blame my parents for not doing that. I get it, but at the time it was hard. It was you didn't know what to do. And for a long time, I was like, I guess I got to work at a factory because that's the way you make money. Right.
How did that show up for you when you started business, or even the decision to start a business?
Well, I thought everybody was in the same boat that I was, because you just kind of surround yourself with the same people. And I figured, well, I could probably pay $50 for pictures. That sounds great. That's what I'm doing. And that was not a great idea.
Yeah, I would say it showed up in your pricing for sure. Any other places it's shown up?
Yeah. So I had a survival instinct. I thought okay, I made this $3,000 sale and I'm never going to see that again. You know what I mean? It was, I made this sale. I'm never going to see that money again. I need to absolutely save it, hang on to it, pay some things, but prepare for the next client, but they're not going to pay that much, and that isn't true. That isn't true. People love their pictures. They invest in them. And I, sometimes the sales are a little less, sometimes they're a little more, and it's always constantly coming in. I trust it now that it is going to come in. And having that trust rather than the worry that it isn't I hate to get into the whole law of attraction thing, but it's a mindset, you don't expect to only make $10,000 that year.
Right.
So more and more is going to happen because you're putting more attention on it. And that was a big shift for me, knowing that.
Hey, listeners, are you ready to turn your passion into profit? Then grab a copy of Profit First for Creatives. Click the link in the show notes to purchase a copy. And if you're not ready to make that full commitment, you can download a free copy of the first chapter. Check it out right now. I think you highlighted something that we've discussed on a previous episode, that beliefs drive action. And, you will not act on something you do not believe, right? And so when you have a belief that I'm only going to pay $50 for a photo shoot, that's what drives that action, right? But you figured out that was a incorrect belief. So what was that like? Having that belief, realizing it wasn't right, and then replacing it with a different belief.
Years of meditation and saying it out loud several times to myself in the mirror. It sounds stupid, but it absolutely works. It's silly. If somebody walks in on you, you feel like a dummy, but it is the best way to get that confidence and know, like it's hard to explain, but it's a knowing, it's an intuition thing. And you are able to kind of get out of that scarcity and survival mode and go into more of an abundance mode. And hey, you know what? If I get 3 clients this week, that's fantastic. I'm so excited and just being grateful for everything that comes in, because I truly am.
Sure.
And it makes a big difference in how you're selling as well, because when you come from a place of desperation, people know. they absolutely know. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's smelly. It is not a place that you want to be or anybody else wants to be. And when you come from a place of love and of service, they hear that. And yeah.
And you even get to the point, if you've been doing it long enough, like I would never hire someone that was desperate. Like that's not the kind of person I want doing work for me. That's awful.
It's frantic energy. It's chaos,
right.
Like you're just, oh my God, I hope this turns out right. I hope they pay whatever. I hope that they love their photos. And you go from a place of, I hope to, I know. Yeah.
So, are you familiar or have you read Profit First by Mike Michalowicz?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I won't ask you any questions.
Okay, but I'm going to look that up.
I strongly recommend it just because he has some great stories. His story as an entrepreneur is very powerful. As a matter of fact, I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago for the show, and he retold it, and he was almost moved to tears again. And I mean, like, this is probably 15 years since then, and 10 years since he's written the book. But, I know it's a story he's repeated a lot of times, but it was that impactful. So read that book. And then I will send you a copy of Profit First for Creatives for being on the show, because it deals with some things that we're talking about.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome very much. Where are you going to be in the next 3 years? What's Elizabeth Snyder photography look like?
That is shifting hugely. So my youngest is a senior this year. She is graduating. She is going away. Our older 2 are already doing their own thing, and they're great. And I'm going to have a whole lot of free time, and I still got about 20 years left to work. So my favorite genre of photography ever since I was a kid was combat photography. I wanted so badly to join the Air Force and be a kind of a photojournalist for them. And just documenting what's going on in the world. It was something that I really wanted to do. My mom talked me out of it. I graduated in 99. My mom talked me out of it, which was a godsend because 2 years later, we started a 20-year war. Yeah. So I kind of lucked out, but I am going to be going after my pilot's license. Yep. I want to do some more aerial stuff. I want to be able to travel to broader places. And I have a book that should be finished by the beginning of December. So that will be coming out, and that is all about, so it's about finding your purpose, but really it's about your purpose can be anything that you want it to be, and it can shift and it can change. And as long as you are making moves into your own happiness, you're winning. And it doesn't have to make you money. Take the pressure off of that. Like it can be a hobby. And if people want to pay you for it, great. But otherwise, like just enjoy it. Just go out for a half an hour walk in the woods. Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoy flying more than I do. I finished my pilot's license a couple of years ago. And
did you? Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, but I don't like flying.
Oh.
So I don't mind riding. I don't like being in charge. It's very anxiety producing. So yeah, I can do it. But
sure. People's lives are at stake.
Starting with my own. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's funny. My wife, said she'd never fly with me. And I said, oh, sure you will. You'll come around. And, since she, going back to purpose, since she has no interest in flying with me, I'm not going to go somewhere by myself. So that kind of just died. I mean, it's one of those skills that I can do well, but there's not a reason to. So some people, it's like a high for them, and they just want to go do it. And I'm like, that's not me. But that's not golf. That's not fishing. Like I don't have a high outside of what I'm doing. So,
something I'm learning. So I recently got my ADHD diagnosis
stamp. Sticker.
And I'm finding that most entrepreneurs may have a little bit of, ADHD spectrum.
We've got a lot. Yes, we've got a lot wrong with us.
And our dopamine, we have too many dopamine receptors. Mm-hmm. So not enough things give us that, like, that jolt of happiness, mm-hmm. like crossing a check mark off your task list or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's harder for us to feel satisfied or feel even like that, oh my God, I'm going to jump off a cliff with a bungee, and I think we chase it a lot harder because we don't have enough of it. So yeah, I completely understand that.
I have, excuse me, I just launched a second podcast because one wasn't enough, where we actually talk about those issues. It's called the Chris Project, and we talk about mental health, mindset, mental issues, mostly the darker stuff in entrepreneurship that people don't want to talk about. But the reality is that there's a higher propensity of addiction in entrepreneurs. And one of the things I discovered through this journey is that some entrepreneurs actually use their business as a coping mechanism, which is very strange to me. But then I saw it and I'm like, oh yeah, I can totally see where that is a way to cope with your mental problems.
Yeah, I am a workaholic. It's a problem. So I started my business in 2012 and I've been working 60 to 80 hour weeks ever since. Yeah, I enjoy it. I love it, but my family hasn't seen me in a few years. there is a slow season and I come back and forth and whatever, but no, that is something I do struggle with because I just feel like if I'm not hustling, I'm not, bringing in the stuff that I need. So I know that isn't true, and I know that I can delegate, and I know that perfectionism is something that I need to let go of too, and just trust that other people know what they're doing. Right? I have to pass that on.
Yeah, I think, for me, that whole idea that you've got to be doing something for 40 plus hours a week, you have to be productive, was a belief that I had picked up that I found to not be true. Like if you don't do this, you're not worthwhile or you're not, whatever. What I did find though, that scratching that creative itch, that entrepreneurial itch, doesn't go away. That's something that you really can never satisfy. And unfortunately, what I see some entrepreneurs doing is they stay in the business, they stay in the hustle mode because they're afraid of losing that scratch, right? Rather than like to your situation where, okay, well this thing's working fine. I'm going to go do something else as well. I'm going to go start a nonprofit. And when you shift that mindset from saying that it has to be something you believe that's not necessarily true, I've got it to where I work 25 hours a week in my business, and I probably don't need to work that much. Now, that's not to be braggadocious, but that's the reality. And you can get to the point where your business is separate from yourself, and you can then use that creative energy to go do something else. It might have an economic intent. It might not. It doesn't matter. But you can scratch that entrepreneurial itch because that's never going away.
No, it isn't. I love it. And I have a million ideas of things that I want to start and do. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me to start a new project. Like the book, it's taken me months, but it's going to be worth it in the long run, but it's not the immediate gratification of, okay, this person paid me for their sitting fee and I'm excited and I have a little money and now I'm going to, do this. So doing something that like may not work out financially or may be, just kind of a time suck, but I'm still going to enjoy doing it.
Right.
So I need to kind of, that's something I'm working on too, not
well,
perfect.
And you probably will be like me when you get everything done and about 2 weeks before it's published, you realize, oh shit, this is just the beginning. Now I got to go sell it. Now I got to go market it, tell people about it. Right. And that just speaks to the whole, if you're not enjoying the process, you're not going to be happy because there is no end to it. I mean, you never reach a point where everything's running as smoothly as possible, and you go out and do whatever it is, you fly, play golf, whatever.
Sure, yeah.
That's not reality.
Nope, I agree. It isn't.
Elizabeth, how do we find out about what you do?
I am Elizabeth Snyder Photography, LLC. So I am available at elizabethsnyderphotography.com. I know it's very long. I didn't think about it before I made it. Instagram is ESP LLC. And Facebook and TikTok and everything else is the same. So you should be able to find me under either Liz Snyder or Elizabeth Snyder Photography.
And we will include all those links in the show notes.
Fabulous. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Listeners, if you like what you heard, please subscribe or follow the podcast. Share it with somebody else. Leave us a rating. If you have suggestions, text us and shoot us a message and let us know what you'd like to hear on the show. Until then, in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and elsewhere. Ta-ta for now.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Profitable Creative. Until next time, you money lovers. And don't forget, Profit First for Creatives is live via Amazon. Link below.